Wow, great turnout. It looks sort of like the waiting room in the ED sometimes, Dad. Good afternoon, welcome, and I want to thank everyone for attending the investiture of Dr. Theodore Christopher in the Green Family Foundation and John and Patricia Walsh's Professorship in Emergency Medicine. Healthcare is complicated, and academics is complicated, and this is a day that's not complicated. It's the favorite day, along with commencement, for a president of a university, because it's all about amazing and extraordinary folks that are willing to honor our fantastic faculty, in this case Ted, and fantastic faculty, in this case Ted. For those of you who have been reading the newspaper, Jefferson has been doing a few things lately, and that requires an incredibly dedicated and special board of trustees and the folks that really are the heroes of the new Jefferson, and I'd like to ask some of them that are here today to stand. Steve Crane, our chair of the board. Bruce Entwistle. Rich Hebner, our former chair of the board. And Dick Gozin, chair of the Jefferson Academic Board. Dick. I'd also like to have stand all the people that oversee me and give me advice, trustees and members of the President's Leadership Council, the Board of Presidential Advisors, and the Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center boards. Could you please stand? So Ted, this is the bar mitzvah you never had, and you know, as I was thinking about this could be a great mini-series. It's 3 roommates in college, lots of antics back then, succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, have amazing families. Arlen and Patricia knew each other since, what, 8th grade? The only thing is, Arlen is Patricia's wife. I mean, this is just a great, right? I mean, Arlen is John's wife. Patricia is John's wife. Okay. I will not write this miniseries. I'd like to recognize the folks on our stage, Arlen Green and his wife, Paula. And you'll get to hear more about them in a minute. I'd like to recognize Arlen's brother, Richard Green, a good friend. Richard is chairman and CEO of First Trust, a community bank through and through, founded in South Philadelphia in 1934 by the Green's grandfather, Samuel A. Green, as a savings and loan during the Depression. Richard is the 3rd generation CEO and chairman, and the family foundation is named after his parents, Daniel B. and Florence E. Green. Daniel is in his 90s and living in California. Richard, on the other hand, never ages and is having a fantastic year as a part owner of the Eagles. So, Richard, thank you so much for being here. I'd also like to acknowledge members of the donor families. Recognize John Walsh and his wife, Patricia. And of course, the members of Ted's wonderful family, his great wife, Claudia, and his daughters who led the processional. Monica is a physician assistant in plastic and reconstructive cancer surgery at Hopkins, or as we like to call it, the other Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center. Adrienne is an intern at surgery at Jefferson with Dr. Yo, so she's tired. And Vanessa is our favorite Christopher because Ted is still paying tuition as a 4th-year Sidney Kimmel Medical College student hoping to go into ENT. So thank all 3 of you. So what's this about? So in case you haven't read the papers or talked to me, Thomas Jefferson University Hospital was ranked number 16 this year in U.S. News & World Report out of 4,500 hospitals, something we can be incredibly proud of, something we can be proud of in Philadelphia, that we're the only city in the country with 2 hospitals in the top 16. And while I'd like to think that a good part of the reason has to do with folks at 925 Chestnut Street, where administration is, the simple fact is all of that is because of our faculty. And I'd like to invite the amazing faculty of Thomas Jefferson University. You can sort of notice them because they're dressed a little different than us, to stand and be recognized. So I had a little preamble to this with a little party we had at our house, that Colleen and I, and it was actually a pretty emotional party. It was emotional because just really understanding, and just think about this, the bonds that lead to something like this for Ted and Arlen and John while they were students at Harvard. And I don't know exactly how many years ago that was, but it was a few. And the fact that respect, admiration for each other, fun, has stayed together and resulted in this gift, for me was really emotional. I also got the feeling of what things must have been like at Harvard, because it was a heck of a good time. And I remember being really tired the next day, and you guys really knew how to have fun and celebrate what's a great event. The other thing that's great about this is I gave a talk, and some of you have heard this, but I gave a talk right before I started the job at Jefferson, and the economist before me was talking about the two things you don't want to be running at that time in 2013, and they were academics and healthcare, because they were sort of impossible. And as the next person up, I said, well, I'm in academic healthcare, and they are financially impossible, given all the constraints, except for the fact of the amazing folks that help us out in philanthropy, that help us out looking at things like Ted Christopher and these investitures. It's really the fuel that allows us to really move forward and do some of the great things that we celebrate to achieve our mission. One of the things that's very humbling to me as the president of Thomas Jefferson University is that mission orientation. And just a few things for those of you who are new to Jefferson. We were the first medical school in the country that thought that seeing humans was important. Before us, you would do your research in academics and then graduate and practice on patients. That human interaction, that interprofessional interaction between the faculty, just like your friendship has lasted, that has lasted at Jefferson for 194 years. And that's really one of the things that makes us incredibly special. And the fact that this gift will be able to help us take care of everyone, help us reimagine healthcare, education, discovery to create unparalleled value and really improve lives, which is our mission, is really fantastic. It really is the differentiator and critical to our success. If we didn't have these kind of gifts, if we didn't have this kind of philanthropy, Jefferson would be a shell of what it is today. So this is a joyous occasion. We want everybody to enjoy. You're going to hear some amazing stories about some amazing people, and then hopefully we can have a great time and celebrate this great event. And with that, I'd like to introduce the greatest leader of an Office of Institutional Advancement that I've ever met, my Executive Vice President and Chief Advancement Officer, Elizabeth Dale. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Steve. Good afternoon. Trustees, benefactors, colleagues, and friends, I echo Dr. Klasko's appreciation to you for joining us for the investiture of Dr. Theodore Christopher, the Green Family Foundation, and John and Patricia Walsh, Professor in Emergency Medicine. Today, the Jefferson family is gathering with the Green, the Walsh, and the Christopher families to join in both a solemn and joyous occasion with roots reaching back to medieval times. This momentous academic tradition formally recognizes transformational philanthropy and a faculty member's, in this case Ted's, extraordinary accomplishments, intellect, remarkable skill, unwavering commitment to excellence, and an unmatched dedication. Endowed professorships are among the very highest honors that faculty receive, an acknowledgement of the esteem with which an institution holds them. Endowed professorships at Thomas Jefferson University date back to 1910, when Maria Gross Horowitz made a bequest in memory of her father, Dr. Samuel Gross. Dr. Gross was one of the finest surgeons of his time, founded the American Medical Association, and was an extraordinary educator. Today, the Samuel D. Gross Professor of Surgery is held by Dr. Charles Yeo, and it is one of 80, soon to be 81, endowed professorships at Thomas Jefferson University. And I see in the audience today Dr. Yeo's wife, Dr. Teresa Yeo. Thank you for joining us. Yes. Well, endowed professorships enable faculty members to realize their dreams and enable them to stand out amongst their peers, which makes Jefferson stand out also. And investiture brings families together, and like most family get-togethers, there are always plenty of stories to go around, and Jefferson's stories are compelling. Investitures are part of a spectacle. They tell a story. They tell a story about amazing and talented doctors like Dr. Ted Christopher and the critical life-saving work he's done for our city on the front lines of Jefferson's emergency department. And I have had personal experience with Ted. One summer day, I was charging across Walnut Street and missed a pothole and ended up in the emergency room with Ted caring for me, and he quickly and accurately diagnosed my fractured ankle and took really good care of me that day. But investitures tell another story, too. They're about the generosity of benefactors who partner with Jefferson through philanthropic investments that improve the lives of our community and often beyond. And that's what the Greens and Walshes have done by endowing the Green Family Foundation and John and Patricia Walsh Professorship in Emergency Medicine. But today's story takes a surprising and interesting plot twist. The characters in this story are diverse, and you'd hardly expect to find them together in the same narrative. Arlen Green worked in the family business at First Trust Bank, then moved into commercial real estate investment. And Paula Green worked in public relations and then became a hospital chaplain, training here at Thomas Jefferson University. And Richard Green, Arlen's brother, CEO of First Trust Bank. And John Walsh has been a business leader with a global chemical company, BOC Group, and now is CEO of UGI Corporation and chairman of AmeriGas. And Patricia Walsh is a self-taught artist whose work has been exhibited in the United States and in the United Kingdom, and is a social activist who supports and volunteers at Homes for the Homeless. And Ted Christopher, an excellent emergency room physician, one of Jefferson's most distinguished department chairs, a professor, a mentor, a creative and entrepreneurial leader in transformational change. Well, what's brought them all together? It's friendship and family. Arlen and John were college roommates, and they both knew Ted from Harvard Square. The three of them and their families have been friends for 44 years. The storyline is a confluence of diverse individuals who've remained friends and have banded together to support health and education at Jefferson and for the community we serve. In Shakespeare's play, Julius Caesar, Brutus observes that a friend should bear a friend's infirmities. The quote suggests true friends accompany each other through hardship as well as good times. This being healthcare and the professorship created in the Greens and Walshes being in emergency medicine, the word infirmities hints at a broader human connection that transcends personal friendship. At Jefferson, this professorship will bear and heal the infirmities of the thousands of patients who come through our doors every year. Today's investiture tells the story of family and friendship catalyzing philanthropy that enables Jefferson to bear the infirmities of countless friends, whether they're patients or students or anyone in need. The Green Family Foundation and John and Patricia Walsh Professorship in Emergency Medicine celebrates three families: the Green family, the Walsh family, and the Christopher family. Yes. It's now my pleasure to invite Patricia and John Walsh to the podium and to introduce my colleague, Senior Vice President Stephen Smith, to read the proclamation.
The Board of Trustees of Thomas Jefferson University extends its deep appreciation to John and Patricia Walsh for establishing the Green Family Foundation and John and Patricia Walsh Professorship of Emergency Medicine. Whereas John and Patricia Walsh gave generously to create the Green Family Foundation and John and Patricia Walsh Professorship of Emergency Medicine at Thomas Jefferson University. Whereas John Walsh leads the Fortune 500 energy distribution company, UGI Corporation, as president and CEO, and AmeriGas as chairman. Whereas John Walsh serves our community as a board member at the Philadelphia Zoo, the United Way of Greater Philadelphia, the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia, and Mainline Health. Whereas Patricia Walsh is an artist whose work has been exhibited in England and the United States and donated to the animal welfare and healthcare facilities. Whereas Patricia Walsh has helped the homeless by supporting anti-shelters, including the Catherine Twomey House, the Home of the Sparrow, and Patty's House with Valley Youth House. Therefore, with great appreciation, the Board of Trustees of Thomas Jefferson University proudly recognizes John and Patricia Walsh for their remarkable leadership, compassionate service, and generosity. This proclamation is presented in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the 20th day of November, 2017.
How appropriate to gather here tonight in this month of giving thanks. We agreed to help fund this chair because of gratitude that there are physicians in this world like Dr. Theodore Christopher. What sets Ted apart and worthy of this honor? Yes, Ted has a tremendous work ethic and an incredible intellectual curiosity, but that usually goes hand in hand with success. No, Ted has that special something that sets him apart and worthy of being distinguished for this honor. He has a quality without which I cannot admire, respect, or love anyone. What sets Ted apart is that Ted is a humble man. Ted has humility, a virtue that I think has become underappreciated, if not completely forgotten. When a patient walks into a doctor's office or the emergency room, in the time of desperation and crisis, what they need is to be seen. And it is only a humble person who can see the other in the room. And it is only a humble person who can feel empathy and extend compassion. And it is only with humility that anyone has humanity. Any patient who is lucky to encounter such a physician is indeed blessed. Going hand in hand with humility is the ability to feel and express gratitude. In fact, expressing gratitude is one thing that keeps a person humble. As the Greek word stem implies, it's what keeps him grounded. Ted is grateful for the gifts that he was born with. Without these gifts, over which none of us have any control, anything would be impossible. Ted fosters this culture of humility and gratitude in the people who staff his emergency room, which makes it one of the great ones in the country. Ted's focus and what he demands of the others is that their focus is on the people coming in for help. Ted has spent his entire career dedicated to the greater good. It is not by chance that he put perhaps more lucrative associations aside and chose a teaching institution in the emergency room, which I've come to find out is apparently one of the most anonymous specialties in medicine, and which speaks to the rarity of endowed chairs in emergency medicine. He could do the greatest good here. He wasn't looking for accolades. So in this month of Thanksgiving, we wanted to take this opportunity to shower Dr. Theodore Christopher with the accolades he deserves and put him up as a physician to be emulated. Ted has raised 3 adult daughters, all who have entered the medical profession. I assume they will lead with Ted's humility and his ability to feel and express gratitude. But it is our prayer that those who benefit from this chair and from the mere institution of this chair, it's our prayer that the up-and-coming generation will also know to emulate Dr. Theodore Christopher and all that he is. And for that, my husband and I are grateful.
It's a little bit of good cop, bad cop. So I've known Ted a long time. So as Patricia noted in her remarks, Ted is a remarkably accomplished man who is also very humble and very genuine. Now, having known Ted for well over 4 decades, as you've heard, and having shared many life experiences with him, college parties, spring break road trips, 40-plus years of the ups and downs of our beloved Boston teams, it's safe to say that Ted and I both know we have a lot to be humble about. Patricia and I are really excited to be here today. We've been thrilled to have the opportunity to work with Dr. Klasko and the outstanding team here at Jefferson. We're honored to collaborate with the Green Family Foundation to endow this chair. Arlen and I, as you've heard, have been friends since the fall of 1973, and we're roommates in college, so we too have quite a history. I've long admired the great work that the Green family has done in our region, and that work spans multiple generations. So to Arlen, Paula, and Richard, thank you. We're also pleased that we can share this celebration with Claudia, Monica, Adrian, and Vanessa. Ted is the consummate family man, and today is all about family. And now to my friend Ted. When you reflect on a friendship that spans over 40 years, certain memories come flooding back. I thought I would share just a few with you. Ted serving as a volunteer bartender, he's a certified bartender, for my sister's wedding reception in the backyard of my parents' house on a hot summer day in 1976. My mother, who was a nurse, visiting Ted in the post-tonsillectomy recovery room at her hospital. Ted, who was a college student at the time, was in great pain post-recovery and was surrounded by rapidly recovering 7- and 8-year-olds cheerfully eating their ice cream. For some reason, as a clueless 19-year-old guy, I thought that was just hilarious. Ted setting my broken shoulder blade in a ski patrol hut at the bottom of a mountain in Utah. It is great to have an ER doc on the slopes with you. Ted letting me cut in front of him to ask Patricia to dance on the first night I met her. Ted knew I hated to dance and realized that I must be on a mission. And finally, Ted, myself, and several other scholars walking back to our dorms after a long evening of academic discussions at the Bow and Arrow Pub in Cambridge, Mass. While that memory is a bit hazy, I may have walked completely over the top of Ted's sister's blue Volkswagen Beetle, and I may have left a small dent in the roof. I say may for 2 very good reasons. It was well over 40 years ago, and more critically, it was $1 a pitch a night at the Bow and Arrow Pub. But I digress. Let me close by returning to our friend Ted and why we're here today. If you spend more than a few minutes with Ted or me, you'll find out that we are Boston guys. So I thought I would trot out a little Boston to conclude things. Ted, I am wicked glad to have had the privilege to be your friend for these last 44 years. Patricia and I are wicked proud to be associated with this wonderful event. And finally, Jefferson, your many students, and the thousands of individuals and families who benefited from your compassionate care are wicked lucky indeed.
Please join me in welcoming Paula and Arlen Green to the podium. And the proclamation reads, "The Board of Trustees of Thomas Jefferson University extends its deep appreciation to the Daniel B. and Florence E. Green Foundation for establishing the Green Family Foundation and John and Patricia Walsh Professorship in Emergency Medicine. Whereas the Daniel B. and Florence E. Green Foundation has given generously to create the Green Family Foundation and John and Patricia Walsh Professorship of Emergency Medicine at Thomas Jefferson University. Whereas Samuel A. Green founded First Trust Bank in a South Philadelphia storefront, and the Green family grew the business into a $3 billion commercial bank serving Greater Philadelphia. Whereas the Daniel B. and Florence E. Green Foundation promotes and supports outstanding efforts in health, education, housing, and other fields. Whereas the Green family embodies the ethic of hard work, the spirit of generosity, and the bonds of affection and mutual support imparted by Daniel and Florence Green. Therefore, with great appreciation, the Board of Trustees of Thomas Jefferson University proudly recognizes the Daniel B. and Florence E. Green Foundation for its remarkable generosity and civic service. This proclamation is presented in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the 20th day of November, 2017.
Oh, so many white jackets here. You know, I was in the shower this morning and I cut myself on the lower lip. If anybody could take, well, all right. We'll take care of it at the reception. That's all right. That's okay. As you've heard repeatedly tonight, and you're going to hear it again, I've known Ted since 1973. He's been a part of my family since then. My parents and brothers have all known him for decades as well. And yet, when I wanted to propose to my brothers that our family's foundation support this professorship, ultimately to be named after Ted, I thought it would be good to include Ted's CV in my write-up. So I asked Jonathan Agree, great name for a development officer, by the way, even if it is made up. Steve, where are you? That was good thinking. When I asked him to provide Ted's CV for me, I got the virtual copy and I open it up and I see it's 31 pages long. So a few days later, I was speaking with Ted and I asked him about this ridiculously lengthy tome. He asked me where I got it. When I told him that Jonathan had sent it to me, he said, that's a couple years old. It's much longer by now. So one of the things that I noticed and was able to understand on Ted's CV was that he had spent lots of time in China delivering speeches. In fact, after his last speech there, Ted's wife, Claudia, told me that she watched a video of his presentation, and she said it was like watching the opening ceremony of the Olympics. They made such a big deal over Ted. Of course, I would never have heard about this from Ted himself, but it is certainly great to see how proud Claudia is of Ted's Chinese celebrity status. In fact, Ted, I don't know if you've gotten the call yet, but I heard that President Trump was considering tapping your status in China to help solve the North Korean crisis. Good luck, Ted. No pressure there. One thing to note, however, is that there were very few words on Ted's resume that I actually understood. So I still believe that it's quite possible the whole thing is a hoax. But because we love Ted so much, I'm willing to take his word for it that all that stuff really means something. And of course, it does mean something. It means that Jefferson, Philadelphia, and the entire medical community are much better places because Ted Christopher is a part of them. And I am a much better man, having been privileged to be a part of Ted's life for over 70% of his and my life on this planet. I've done the math. Math, I know, science and medicine, not so much. Ted has also deeply affected the course of my wife's life. After 25 years in PR, Paula received her master's in bioethics at Penn a few years ago, and while she truly loved the course of study, she really had no idea how to convert it into a career. And that's where Ted came in. He convinced Paula to check out the chaplaincy program here at Jeff. She took his advice and has become an all-star chaplain at HUP and a member of their ethics committee as well. And she has indeed found her calling thanks to Ted. And I don't know many of the people in this room, but I am extremely confident that you are all grateful beneficiaries of having been positively influenced in some way by Dr. Christopher. And Ted is not the only one in his immediate family dedicated to helping other people with their physical limitations and ailments. Ted's wonderful wife, Claudia, has devoted her career to providing much-needed therapy to those in extreme need, head trauma victims. Ted's beautiful daughters, Monica, Vanessa, Adrian, have all entered the medical profession as well. And Ted and Claudia have been married for more than 33 years, and they've raised 3 fantastic daughters in whom they have imbued that same sense of compassion, hard work, and kindness that has carried them to this day. Now, Ted and I have both known John Walsh, as you've heard, since we all met at Harvard in 1973. John and I were roommates our junior year, but as was mentioned before, I've known John's wife, Patricia, even longer, since middle school when we were able to call her Patty. In fact, Patty, it's an old habit, sorry, met John and Ted at an event that I had arranged back in 1976. So when the opportunity to honor Ted with an endowed professorship came up, I knew that John and Patty would not want to miss out on it. I barely got the question out when they agreed to share in this once-in-a-lifetime tribute. That partnership has made this event even sweeter for Paula and me and our family. I would like to take a moment to discuss Ted's athletic prowess. I've been Ted's guest at Jefferson's annual golf outing for decades now. In fact, it's only through being a guest at this outing that I've been able to assemble my entire wardrobe and the wardrobe for Paula and our 6 kids. They give away so much stuff at those events. Do you like the suit? Yeah. Here's the really interesting part about the golf outing, though. Ted's team has won this event or come in second a few times. For those of you who have seen Ted swing, you'll understand why I believe this is some kind of miracle. Actually, the secret to our team's success has been Ted's brother, Stephen, who was unable to be with us here, but he's from Florida, so he gets to play a lot of golf, and he hits the ball right down the middle every time, and so we're always in the running with Steve as a part of the group. But here's something you may not know about Ted. He was a great basketball player, and I believe he's won the Jefferson foul shooting contest a number of times, making, on occasion, over 90% of his shots. So far, I've been fortunate in that I have not had to rely on Ted's expertise in the ER. But I certainly hope that if I ever do, his ER skills are more like his basketball talent than his golf proficiency. All right, so Ted's a great guy, we all know that. But most of us are also aware, especially in this room, of his one congenital flaw that even a great ER doc cannot cure. He's a rabid Boston sports nut. Not only that, but he proselytizes. And it's one thing for him to go after me, but he's going after our kids, and that's crossing the line, Ted. John, Ted, and I once went to a Sixers game with our daughter Danielle a few years ago. Thanks to my brother Richard sitting here, who got us seats on the floor at the Spectrum at the time. So what does Ted do? He walks in, we go down to the floor of the Spectrum in the Sixers game against the Celtics. He's wearing his fluorescent green Celtics jacket on the floor. The Sixers mascot at the time was Big Shot. Big Shot took a look at Ted, came right over to him, and the two of them got in a brawl right there on the floor of the stadium. It was very embarrassing for all of us, except Ted, of course. And I'm afraid, Ted, that our daughter Danielle was not swayed by your performance, because after all, Big Shot won. I mentioned that Ted and I have been a part of each other's families for over 4 decades, and I'm so happy to report that I didn't need Ted's 31-page CV in order to convince my siblings, Richard and Ben and Barbara, to join me in having our family's foundation provide the funds for this professorship. They've known Ted forever and already knew all they needed to know about him and his family to make that decision. So to Ted, Claudia, Monica, Adrian, all of your family, Ted, tonight will remain, did I say Vanessa? I thought I did. Okay. Vanessa. Thank you. Tonight will remain a key part of my personal highlight reel forever. And for Paula, my parents, my siblings, we couldn't ask for a more worthy cause to support, nor could we ask for better partners with which to share the joyful occasion. Thanks again so very much to John and Patty. Ted, we love you. Congratulations.
It's now my pleasure to turn the podium over to Dr. Mark Tikaczynski. Mark is Jefferson's Vice Chancellor and Provost. He is Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs at Thomas Jefferson University and the Anthony F. and Gertrude M. De Palma Dean of the Sidney Kimmel Medical College. I often call Mark Jefferson's modern-day Renaissance man. Please welcome Dr. Mark Tikaczynski.
So before I get into my scripted remarks, a few additional remarks here. First of all, I've been here 9 years, but this is, and we've had a number of investitures, but this one is incredibly special. And what makes it particularly special is that it's friendship and friends that underlies this incredible act of generosity to this institution. And to me, nothing means more than friendship, and a friendship that lasts into the four decades length, really speaks to something else. It speaks to the three of you because it takes special people to maintain that kind of friendship over those numbers of years. So thanks for this, making this such an incredibly special event from that dimension. The second point is that I guess there was a purpose from high above that we would merge with Philadelphia University, because in the context of that merger, we acquired a Division II basketball team. So now that I know that Ted plays basketball, I realize that this is not just a unidirectional thing, that we are bringing talent into the merger as well. So Ted, we're going to be calling on you for your basketball prowess there. And then the third point is one of total envy. Ted, you batted 100%, 3 out of 3 daughters going into medicine. I only battled 50%, 2 out of my 4. So obviously you and Claudia did something very special. And they really are an incredible 3 daughters. So you've done a remarkable job at that. So I'm pleased really to be here today to honor a great emergency medicine physician, Ted Christopher. Endowed professorships are among the highest honors faculty receive, an acknowledgement of the esteem with which an institution holds them. By investing a faculty member with a professorship, Thomas Jefferson University formally recognizes their outstanding dedication, consummate skill, and singular achievement. Dr. Christopher has been practicing emergency medicine at Jefferson since 1986 when he came as a resident. He's been a professor and chair of the Department of Emergency Medicine at the Sidney Kimmel Medical College since 2002. What really strikes me, too, before I talk about some of his other accomplishments, is the incredible department that he's put together. And I dare say when I do my impartial judging of emergency medicine departments out of the country, but it's confirmed by others, we probably have one of the top 2 or 3 academic emergency medicine departments in the country that comes together. Now, I actually used to chair a department of pathology and lab medicine, and I used to say that pathology and lab medicine disproportionately positively influenced the dynamics of medical schools. But I'm afraid at this institution, emergency medicine has risen to the top. I know it's dangerous to cite specific things in this because I will undoubtedly forget some of you. But if you look at who runs the diversity for the university as well as the medical college, an emergency medicine physician, Bernie Lopez. Our telehealth program, driven from the president's office, an emergency medicine room physician, Judd Hollander. Launching integrative medicine was launched out of Ted Christopher, that's Dan Monty, you get the drill here. The College Within the College Translational Research Program, which is very dear to my heart, Wayne Bond-Lau. Our Medicine Plus, the Medicine Plus design, well, Mon Ku in emergency medicine. Then it comes international, our China relationships. There's Jin Ma, and of course that got me a few bottoms up together with Ted along the way. And then if not as far as China, but just Chinatown with Wayne Bond-Lau's role in the Chinatown Clinic here. And then Institute of Emerging Health Professions, Charlie Pollack. And this is just to name a few. I'm not even mentioning the people who run emergency preparedness for both the Obama and the Trump administrations, Brendan Carr, Kristen Rising, Roger Band, David Gajewski. A lot of the emergency preparedness of this entire region by Ed Jasper in that department. Dimitri Papanoglu, in Ray Regan, running a lot of the incredible work in injury, hypoxic injury. And the list goes on and on. So Ted clearly has an incredible sense of talent in his recruitment and what he's put together. And so it's not just him and his own talents, but the talent in identifying talent in others that has brought that together. And I'd also point out that in the Blue Ridge Institute ranking for NIH fundings for departments, Jefferson ranked this past year as number 7 nationally among emergency medicine departments. Philadelphia Magazine voted Jefferson Best Urgent Care in Philadelphia in 2016. And then to round off the 2016 Troika for this department, Jefferson has been named honoree of the 2016 CIO 100 Awards, which recognizes organizations around the world that exemplify the highest level of operational and strategic excellence in innovative use of information technology. And it was for the ED Dashboard 2.0, which was nurtured. So you get the drift. Ted has really been the architect of an incredible department here. Ted himself has long served as a leader of professional associations. He is currently president of the Pennsylvania Medical Society, which represents some 16,000 physicians and medical students in our state. In the past, he's been president of the Association of Academic Chairs of Emergency Medicine, the Philadelphia County Medical Society, and the Pennsylvania College of Emergency Physicians, where he was recognized with the chapter's Meritorious Service Award. For many years, he was the Pennsylvania delegate to the American Medical Association. That means for the state. Currently, Ted is on the board of the Philadelphia Health Management Corporation, which serves our city's most vulnerable and impoverished citizens. And here at Jefferson, he's chair of the hospital's Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee and of the Medical College's Academic Protocols Committee. His impact extends far beyond the borders of this campus. Now into his 4th decade at Jefferson, Ted has trained and mentored generations of Jefferson's physicians. And in fact, I came across an email from, I guess, last year where Ted happened to be in Chengdu City, where he has many collaborations at the time of the earthquake there, a rather devastating earthquake in that region. And he did point out in the email that the head of emergency medicine for this number 2 ranked medical center, all of China, was someone he had mentored here at Jefferson. So he's written numerous peer-reviewed articles and lectured around the world on a range of topics, including ischemic reperfusion injury, hospital patient access and flow, advocacy in medicine, and emergency health care. So it's an incredible pleasure, honor for me to bestow on Ted Christopher this professorship. So I'll read the proclamation for you. The Board of Trustees of Thomas Jefferson University proudly recognizes Theodore A. Christopher, M.D., as the first holder of the Green Family Foundation and John and Patricia Walsh Professorship of Emergency Medicine. Whereas Theodore A. Christopher, M.D. has served with distinction as a physician at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital for more than 30 years and as professor and chair of the Department of Emergency Medicine at Sidney Kimmel Medical College since 2002. Whereas Dr. Christopher has taught and mentored numerous resident physicians and medical students throughout his long career, training new generations and skilled, knowledgeable, and compassionate Jefferson physicians. Whereas Dr. Christopher is highly esteemed among his peers, having served as president of the Association of Academic Chairs of Emergency Medicine, the Philadelphia County Medical Society, and the Pennsylvania College of Emergency Physicians, and currently serving as president of the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Whereas Dr. Christopher is an accomplished researcher who has lectured internationally and written or co-authored more than 80 peer-reviewed articles and delivered more than 140 abstracts and research presentations. Whereas Dr. Christopher has dedicated his career to healing and serving Philadelphia, especially the city's most vulnerable and impoverished populations. Therefore, the Board of Trustees of Thomas Jefferson University expresses its appreciation for Dr. Theodore Christopher's long and devoted service and extends congratulations to him as the first holder of the Green Family Foundation and John and Patricia Walsh Professorship of Emergency Medicine. This proclamation is presented in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the 20th day of November, 2017.
That'd be like Donald Trump with his water bottle. All right. You guys kind of stole the blood of my speech here. John, you got 4 out of the 5 things I was going to mention. Arlen, you got a few of the things I was going to mention. So it's going to be a short little speech here, but I'll start off and we'll see where this goes. So, family, friends, and colleagues, Jefferson leaders and distinguished guests, board members, Dean Tikachinsky, and President Steve Klasko, and of course, John and Patty Walsh, Richard, Arlen, and Paula Green. Good afternoon. I stand before you humbled, proud, and privileged to be the recipient of the Walsh and Green Family Foundation Endowed Professorship in Emergency Medicine at the Sidney Kimmel Medical College of Thomas Jefferson University. It is the first endowed professorship in emergency medicine in this department, and one of only very few in the country. Joseph Zaccardi, the founding father of Jefferson Emergency Medicine, and my mentor, would have been also very proud. Joe passed away a few years ago and is always in my thoughts. In this room are many of my immensely talented and renowned emergency medicine colleagues from throughout the city, state, and beyond. I thank you all for coming to share this great honor with me. It is as much an award for me as it is recognition for all of you, not only for your academic accomplishments and achievements, but also for the challenging work you all do every day as emergency physicians, working in the toughest, most challenging of all clinical environments. My hope is that this professorship is the beginning of more to come for many of you. Friends of Jefferson, alumni, leaders, and legacy benefactors, please take notice. And to all of you who are or might become Jefferson patients, we realize you know us, emergency physicians, not so well. We realize you come to us unexpectedly, spend only a few hours with us, and then leave us quickly. We realize you are unable to establish meaningful long-term relationships with us. But occasionally, we are involved in life-changing, meaningful moments for you and your families. The birth of a child, the life saved, death of a loved one, and unexpected diagnosis. We too have moments with you that define us, moments that we live for, and moments that sustain us and remind us of the priceless gift of being a physician. I respectfully ask in your desire to show your gratefulness as patients that you please remember us. So how did this event ever come to be? It is not a medical story. It's not a story about doctors or grateful patients. It's a story about 3 18-year-old boys, 2 from Boston, 1 from Philadelphia, who met in college and quickly became best friends, who went on to business school and law school, medical school, who attended each other's weddings, who met each other's families, and who somehow all ended up here in Philadelphia, sharing both the triumphs and sorrows of each other's lives, as only best friends can. Allow me to share with you just a few of the many special moments. And here's where I'm going to jump in and change the speech, because I think John and, I don't know, he said a lot of these things, but I'll just say them in my way, if I can. And so I first met John, it's true, in the summer of 1973, when we moved into our Harvard freshman dorm. And we immediately realized that we had a lot in common. Patriots, Celtics, Bruins, and Red Sox. That's a lot in common. That passion grows stronger every single day. I will say in the fall of our freshman year, we threw this party in our dorm, ending up with students streaking naked throughout the Harvard yard. But of course, not me and not John. And not Bill Gates, who lived just a few doors down from us, but opted not to come to our party that night. He missed out. I guess he was just busy changing the world by inventing something like Microsoft, I don't know. Again, John's mom did take care of me with my tonsils. His dad actually worked in the tennis and squash shop in Harvard Square, and John worked actually side by side with his dad, I think many afternoons. It is true, I was the backyard bartender. I think one of my diplomas that's not on my CV, Arlen, is the Harvard School of Bartending, I think, certificate that I did earn. Final exam was drink what you make. I remember that. I think we all kind of passed that one. And then what he kind of mentioned is the fun we had on the 24-hour all-night drive down to Daytona Beach, okay, for spring break with John's great high school friends. That was a blast. But sorry, no more details on that, because what went on in Daytona stays in Daytona. Right, buddy? That's right, okay. John to this day remains the most unassuming, gentle, self-effacing man I have ever met. He and his wife, Patty, it is not surprising that their lives consist of constantly giving back, and you've heard some of those things. I won't make mention of them again, but I will say he funds music rooms and gymnasiums for his high school back in Boston. He was chairman of the board of the World Affairs Council. He's now on the board of Mainline Health. I'm sure I'm just scratching the surface of all the organizations that are the recipients of John and Patty's extreme kindness and generosity. Okay, now you, Arlen. Ever the successful businessman, he managed Harvard's Quincy House Grill in college, introducing me to what would become my standard late-night after-studying ritual: lox, bagels, cream cheese, and foosball. Arlen was easily Harvard's unofficial foosball champion. And it was an invitation to Arlen's wedding in 1976 that brought me to Philadelphia, I think, for the first time in my life. It was there that I met first Arlen's grandfather, Samuel, who's the founding father of the bank, as was mentioned. Met his mom, Florence, who's a beautiful, charming lady and a golf champion. I met his dad, Dan, who's retired now, who's still going strong at age 95. I met his brother, oldest brother, his brother Ben first, with whom I ate chips all night long after the wedding, and so I therefore, I think, gained the name Mr. Chips. And, of course, I met also his older brother, Richard, who I think just came off the plane from Dallas, where he attended, I think, the Eagles' astounding win last night. So congratulations, Richard, that's great. You won't hear me say that too much, but I'll say it today. And so when I moved permanently to Philadelphia in 1984, Arlen was the first person I called. And one of the first things he did was invite me to join his Sixer season ticket group. And for 30 plus years, we had season tickets together. So, and that is very true. That story about Big Shot, which I won't go over that again. But I will say he did like voodoo me all night long. He did not like my Celtics jacket, but that's the way it was. And Arlen does anchor my JUP golf tournament team. And one story that I will say is because he tried to help me. I mean, he really did. In that, for my 50th birthday, 12 years ago, he bought me golf lessons. Well, I still haven't used those golf lessons. And even though they don't expire, his golf pro now tells me that the 4 lessons are now only worth 2 lessons. So we'll see what happens. But every year we have great fun. We go down to a PGA golf camp down in Florida with Arlen and his friends. And so one evening in Florida, after a day of golf, I was sitting around at night and had a conversation with Arlen's remarkable wife, Paula, who asked me how she could be of service to patients with her extensive background in medical ethics. One phone call led to another, to Joe Legere, who's in the audience here today. And would you know it, as is told, Paula entered our hospital chaplain residency program. Unfortunately for us, she left and went to Penn, and now has a job there in palliative care. And she recently received an award for her phenomenal work there with patients and for contributions in this arena. Paula, always soft and gently spoken, you are truly one of the nicest, caring, and most compassionate people I have ever met. And I say this, and not because you postponed your honeymoon with Arlen, allowing him to go to golf camp in Florida with John and I the day after they got married. That's a true story. Although Patty and my wife still to this day can't believe it, but it's true. That's what you did, Paul. It's great. So Arlen continues to be the consummate Renaissance man. As you probably deduce, he's a great stand-up comic. He's a movie producer. He's a banker. He's a real estate entrepreneur. He's a wonderful husband and father, and he's a great philanthropist. And I think we listed, I think, some of the things that he served on the boards, Lankenau, the zoo, and the World Affairs Council, to name a few. But together with his brother Richard and the Green Family and Foundation, they are generous benefactors to more Philadelphia organizations than you can imagine. One final connection that was mentioned, so it is true that, that when John first saw Patty, I witnessed that moment from across the room. You know how you see that with your friends? It's like he was starstruck. That first look, that undeterred beeline, knocking me out of the way. John hated to dance. He danced. I said, this is something special, and the rest is history. And so Patty has been the mainstay in John's life, his backbone and his foundation ever since. Patty, what can I say? You're an extraordinary woman, classical pianist, unassuming philanthropist. I think the Catherine Toomey House has already been mentioned, as has the house at the Sanctuary for Young Boys and for boys in foster care. But Patty's also an accomplished artist, as is told, and there's galleries all over the place. Her painted horses and dogs are exceptional. As a matter of fact, let me show you. Jonathan, this is not the Larry Bird, Julia Serving chokehold that you want to have. But this is our dog, Gordon, in our house, which know the girls will love to see this. But and it's painted by Patty, and it's a wonderful, I think, portrait, and it hangs at the center of our house. This at the exact center of this, but that's how important this portrait is, Patty. So an exceptional artist. That's what Patty gave us once, and we cherish this, and it's our dog. So. Like all things with you, Patty, I know this comes from your heart, and so God bless you. And so here we are, 44 years later, and for me it's the best of times. I have no doubt, as we age like fine wines, even better times, guys and gals, are yet to come. If I've learned anything over the years, it's that relationships are not only the only thing, they are everything. In many ways, they form the foundation upon which we practice medicine. Arlen, Paula, Richard, John, Patty, you are my brothers and my sisters. You are my family. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for this remarkably generous legacy gift to Jefferson, a gift marked by the incredible story of a long-standing and everlasting friendship and love. I will end this by saying to all of you, the one and only time you might ever hear me say this, go Eagles.
So as we bring this to a close, I'd like to end with two quotes. One from Leonard Bernstein. I'm no longer quite sure what the question is, but I do know that the answer is yes. And that's pretty much a big part of how Ted Christopher has lived his life, and clearly listening to his friends, a big part of the way they've lived their lives. And then a quote from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, your task is not to foresee the future, but to enable it. And Ted Christopher has enabled that future at the institutional level through the incredible people he's brought into this institution, at the state level for everything he's done at the state and national levels. And clearly, this remarkable gift from two families is enabling an incredible future for Jefferson and the emergency medicine department. So thank you very much all. I do want to thank all the guests for coming today, and please don't leave before having some of the refreshments here. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.